Welcome to the In Shape Fitness Show. I am Coach Kim, and today's podcast is a holiday podcast. It wouldn't be a fitness program without some reference to the holidays, when the holidays actually occur, and tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So today is our annual Talk About Turkey podcast. No, I'm kidding. I'm actually not going to talk all that much about food. You know that you're not going to adhere to strict diet regimens on Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're not going to make yourself too unhappy by restricting yourself too much on Thanksgiving. It is a day to enjoy your family, to enjoy sitting around, a table, hopefully not talking about anything too controversial, and enjoying the family around the dinner table for tons of turkey, tons of stuffing, tons of mashed potatoes, whatever you eat, if you're, whatever you enjoy with your family, and just have fun. So you should. But here's the thing. You want your body to be ready for the kinds of experiences that you're going to have, food experiences you're going to have over the holidays. So that's one part of the podcast today. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about doing a little activities. This is part of it, doing some activities that will help build your metabolism to maybe reduce the burden potential for weight gain over the holidays. So we're going to talk a little bit about going for maybe a walk or playing in the park before you sit down for these big meals during the holidays. And then, and also about preparing your body to be on your feet for Black Friday, which is also in 2 days now, still a big deal, even though we have all of this online shopping. I swear, I promise, I do this sort of in anthropological kind of observations that I make when I leave New York City, because I live in Harlem, right? I don't drive around. I'm on my feet all the time, but I'm going to Virginia, and I mostly spend the holidays with my family, either in Virginia or elsewhere with family members where people drive cars all the time. And even though we have all of this online shopping, there is still not a parking space to be found in the parking lot at the Target or the shopping mall, or even places like Home Depot and Staples have just huge Christmas and holiday shopping deals. So people are out driving and they're on their feet, walking around a lot. And there's some things that you should do to prepare your body to be out all day. That will help you go longer, so you can actually be out shopping for a longer period of time without getting tired, and you're not going to, necessarily feel quite as much suffering as a result of being out on your feet. The body, as it turns out, seems like it might be counterintuitive, but the truth of the matter is your body actually wants to be on your feet when you're awake. It does not want you to sit on your butt all day. It does not want you to be stationed in a cubicle or at a desk and to sit with your hands up, typing away, looking at a screen, or talking on the phone all day long, or driving a car or whatever. But that's kind of the way we've evolved. And so being on your feet and walking around, moving around, doing stuff actively is actually what the human body is meant to do. And there are some things that you can, even if you are sedentary, there are some ways to warm up, if you will, before you head out for those experiences. So we're going to talk about those things, all those things in this podcast today. But I actually want to draw your attention back to last week's podcast about workplace wellness, because I just giggled my head off when I was watching a little clip earlier today. I guess from last night's Jimmy Kimmel. I never watch the comedy news guys at night, because I try to either do work or go to bed early enough to get up as early as I do. But I do catch all of the little sort of funny segments the next day on like YouTube or whatever. And I was watching Jimmy Kimmel this morning, and he was making some fun of people having Thanksgiving in the workplace. And I know that people work on Thanksgiving, and I have so much gratitude for all the good people that spend the day, people that work in airports, people that work, on the highways, the police departments and the fire department, doctors and nurses that are willing to, sort of alter their own family plans in order to take good care of us when the rest of the world is out enjoying the holidays with their family. So there's that. But this was more comical because it was like, a law office or a tech company or something. And there's a trend apparently of having these Thanksgiving dinners. Maybe they're not actually on Thanksgiving, but it's the Thanksgiving dinner at the office, and they call them Worksgiving. And these huge sort of conference table spreads of food with people looking not all that happy to celebrate Thanksgiving at work, it seems, because that was the bit. That was the funny part, was the sort of strained smiles on people's faces as photographs were taken of these huge meals in somewhat antiseptic looking rooms with, fold up tables and chairs and then still trying to make it kind of Thanksgiving. And I thought that was kind of interesting in America, where there's an article actually just out in the New York Times today about how mortality rates are changing for people that are in the prime of life. So people my age and maybe a little younger, in 30s, 40s, 50s, when you're in the workplace and you're in your peak earning years. But in some states around the country, our life expectancy is actually reversing. So we're not living longer. We're actually living shorter lives in parts of our country as a result of the way that we live our lives. And so if you are thinking still about how you're going to spend your time on Thanksgiving, plan to try and give real thanks to the people around you, not to an office, but to maybe the people in your office, which is fine, to be out in your community and doing something good for people that are less fortunate than you are. And of course, to spend time with your family around the dinner table, if possible, when you get to enjoy each other. Especially if you live far. I'm the only person in my family that doesn't live fairly close to the core of my family, and we have interesting conversations given the various extremities of our political positions around the Thanksgiving dinner table, but it is always very enjoyable, and it should be enjoyable for you. So the workplace wellness concept that we talked about last week is great. There are more and more companies that are budgeting for and paying attention to health for the employee base, for the staff, the workforce in the company, within the company's existence, because we spend so much time at work, and that is a great thing. And as I said last week, if you have questions about anything that you want to do in your own company, whether it's just consultations, things like lunch and learns, 5K training programs, those kinds of things, all types of stuff that we do here at InShape Fitness, you can let us know. However, there is something to be said for leaving the work and then living your life, and so we're gonna do that now. And I want to talk about Thanksgiving, just a second, about Thanksgiving food, because I never spend a ton of time talking about food. There are just way too many smart people out there that have really incredible theories and understandings, the scientific background to make educated recommendations for the way that you plan and prepare and consume your food. But just my 2 cents of things is to try new things, to be open-minded, to enjoy yourself. Don't make yourself sick by eating too much of anything, and drink plenty of fluids. Make sure that you're hydrated. When we get around the table and we end up kind of indulging, so we'll say indulging, but not overindulging. We're going to indulge, and that's totally cool for the holidays. It's okay. Just don't consume so much of the things that are dehydrating to your body that you end up, either making yourself sick, number one, or causing your immunity to be to try and catch up, which also happens because of inflammation that takes place in your body when you eat too many inflammatory foods. And by that, I mean things that are hefty in terms of sugar, lots of processed carbohydrates, and lots of like heavy meats and cheeses and those kinds of things. Having turkey and some mashed potatoes, a little bit of stuffing, having cranberry sauce, having some salad and green beans, fill it all up and enjoy yourself, indulge, and then have some pie at the end of it. Have a glass of wine if you want, but don't overindulge, and try to enjoy yourself and stay hydrated. So that's the only thing I'm going to say about food. What is really important with respect to the day tomorrow, if you're going to celebrate Thanksgiving, is to get outside and do something active. I am a big fan of turkey trots, huge fan of getting out with the community and going for a group run. And I think that even if you are walking the whole way, it's an incredible experience to gather together on Thanksgiving as a community and to be part of something other than the food part, right? Other than the food part, and then the next day the shopping part. So there are things that you can do as far as volunteering your time at like a soup kitchen or a shelter. Those are also really lovely community-driven things, but because of the nuances associated with this holiday related to food, related to overindulgence and the kinds of foods that we eat, one of the great things that we know we can experience and benefit from is going out and participating in something called a turkey trot. And those are just typically 5Ks or maybe 4-mile runs. And you can get together with other health-minded individuals in your community and, giggle your way through a short race. So if you're not able to do that, and of course everybody isn't able to do that, and there isn't one of those in every single locality, but you certainly want to wake up on Thanksgiving and do something physical before you sit down and start to stuff your face, if you will. So go out and go to the park and play frisbee or football. Go for a hike. Go for a walk. And if the weather is crappy, and oh my goodness, I was just looking at the weather out in the West right now. I went to college in Colorado, and so I have all of my college friends basically live in Denver or in that surrounding area, Boulder, Golden, those kinds of the towns all around Denver, and they have tons and tons of snow. So if it's not amenable for you to get outside and do something active outside, then definitely look for some things that you can do on the inside of your home that just get your heart rate up a little bit. And I shudder to say this because I really don't like the idea of recommending that you go jump on a cardio machine to do some exercise. I'm not really talking about that, but of course that's perfectly fine to do as well. The last thing that I'm going to sort of focus on here, and I'll spend a little more time talking about, is Black Friday shopping and how you prepare your body and why your body gets so tired when you stand up and you're moving around. There are so many things to talk about in terms of this particular issue. And as I said at the beginning, what's kind of fascinating about this period of time in our calendar year in the United States is that in 2019, we are spending enormous amounts of money. A much higher percentage of our holiday spending dollar goes to online shopping. We're just having the gifts delivered to our houses. However, Black Friday is still a thing. It's a big thing. And I don't have the stats. I don't think it really matters, but a really large number of people, a large percentage of people head out and do some sort of holiday shopping the day after Thanksgiving. And you need only look to the fights people get into as the doors open at 5 o'clock in the morning at like a Walmart to the difficulty it is, the difficulty with which you find a place to park the car when you go to the shopping mall the day after Thanksgiving, or go to where I'm going in Virginia, where I grew up in Tidewater, Virginia. Some of the movie theaters and like the shopping malls are all in like the same big complex area, and so what we'll typically do is go see a movie the day after Thanksgiving, and it's impossible to find a parking space. Everybody is out because the shopping mall and the movie theater, and like all bunches of restaurants and Barnes and Noble. These places are all in the same like big complex area where there's a giant parking lot, and it's impossible to find places to park. They get up, they get out, and they're out on their feet for some period of time. And what I will inevitably hear from clients the week after this short holiday and kind of the kickoff really of the shopping season is that going out and being out on your feet all day is exhausting. And why is it so exhausting? Well, there are a couple of things. So we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of your core strength and the mechanics of being up on your feet. So we're going to talk about your posture and the position of your spine as you amble about your day when you're on your feet, but you're not used to being on your feet quite as much. So there's that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between the right leg and the left leg when you're moving about for longer periods of time than you're used to. So that's the second thing. And then the last thing, and this will be the very last thing I talk about today, is carrying stuff like carrying bags of things and how that affects your center of gravity and thus causes pain and suffering when you're out. And then, of course, with all of this, the goal is to give you a couple of tips to prepare yourself ahead of time. And that it goes without saying, you have heard me say this probably dozens of times just in the last month. Warming up in your home before you go anywhere for the day, every day, is really important. Every single day. I wake up, I normally have a sip of water first, and then I complete a short routine in my living room floor. It is not extensive. It gets my entire body going and elevates my heart rate a little bit, but it doesn't take longer than, say, 12 minutes. And that's not my workout regimen necessarily, as you may or may not know. I don't really work out. I haven't been to a gym to exercise since I was pregnant, and that was almost 11 years ago. So I work out by either working my body in my home or doing things like climbing and doing parkour with my daughter in playgrounds or in the park. And I'm a long distance runner. And I don't have a particular schedule I follow. I am very laissez-faire when it comes to my own sort of workout plan. But every single day, I start my day with 6-7 exercises that I do. And that is absolutely something that you should adopt. And it can be catered to your ability level, and then it can change over time. But pick a couple of exercises that you know how to execute pretty well and do them every day. Even if it's just 2 exercises. One seems pretty lame. I do have one guy that has a really serious, high-powered job, is incredibly wealthy, is incredibly wonderful, but busy as all hell in terms of the way that he spends his time. But I can get him to, the one thing I can get him to do every day is to do some push-ups by his bed before he gets up, right? So he rolls into the floor and tries to execute 30 push-ups every morning. Okay. So that's not really enough, but it is something. So start with something. Even if it's just 25 jumping jacks or just 25 squats or just 25 lunges, or just 10 lunges, something to get you started so that you can develop the mental pattern, the habitual sort of structure of stimulating your body after it rests over the evening, over the nighttime, and then using that to your advantage as you proceed through the day. So if you're out to go, you're planning to go shopping on Black Friday or be out all day on Black Friday or any other day, one of the main reasons why you get so tired is because your body is not used to being in motion for a sustained period of time. Your body is used to taking, to sort of relaxing into a chair and taking lots and lots of breaks, which, by the way, are not real breaks because it is straining your body. When you sit on your butt, you are destimulating. You're sort of suppressing the neurotransmitter response, the neuromuscular response to parts of your body, including your butt, your core, and your hips, which technically is really all your core, right? The full trunk of your body. You're causing them to go to sleep. They're dormant tissues in your body, the muscles in your feet, because your feet are not moving, your ankles. You're unstable because you're not stabilizing yourself. And the way that you stabilize yourself in some ways is to be unstable, to do things that actually tax your body, and that helps build the neuromuscular response. It builds the ability for your muscles to respond to stimuli, and it maintains your metabolism and your energy level, which allows you to be on your feet and to stay active longer. So you're exhausted by being out shopping because it's a chicken egg, because you're not active. And the way that you get active is to tax yourself and exhaust yourself a little bit, right? So it is very sort of a circular kind of feedback loop. But one of the things about the holidays is certainly that we are motivated to go ahead and push beyond some of the comfort boundaries as a result of the, somewhat twisted demands of the holiday season. And I'm certainly not here advocating for you to succumb to them. But it is a good time of the year, even though it typically is a time of the year where people gain weight because of the indulgence of food. It's a good time to take advantage of that required motivation to be out in order to help build some of the stamina that you really do need for the long period, like the rest of the year, right? The 11 months that are not between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So when you warm up, you are able to be out longer, to push your body a little bit more, and to mitigate, to suppress some of the pain and suffering that you might feel. And I mentioned those couple of body parts. It's really your whole core, aside from some of the stability muscles that reside in your lower legs and your feet. One of the main things that you can do to warm your body up is to do a little bit of core work. And if you are not familiar with core work, I would suggest that you go and do a couple of the workout podcasts that we have on the Muscle Maintenance podcast show, which is right next to this one on our website, bodybyInshape.com. It's also at iHeartRadio and iTunes, etc. But we've got tons of core workouts there. Obviously, being able to hold a plank is a really vital component of your core stability. Hip bridges and exercises related to the flexibility of your spine. So bird dogs, cat camels with respect to flexibility of your spine, and then bird dogs, which help build the stability of the paraspinal muscles, the little muscles that connect each of the vertebra in your spine. That diagonal dimension of extending your right leg and your left arm out at the same time, and then switching to the left leg and the right arm, is a real stabilizing force in terms of your spine. And coupled with the plank, coupled with the hip bridge, and obviously like things like squats and lunges, which are really basic exercises. None of this stuff, by the way, requires any equipment. It is simply a function of you going to a spot on your floor, and as I said before, picking 5 or 6 really core-based exercises, completing each of them. Just turn on a clock and do each exercise for about a minute. You don't even need to worry about the number of repetitions that you do. You just need to do them. Just do it. Thank you, Nike, for that slogan. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is the difference between the right leg and the left leg. Because the left leg and the right leg, if you are on your feet for a long period of time, your dominant leg eventually is going to need to do more work, because the weaker leg is going to get tired faster first. And in 90% of the population, that means the left leg is going to tire first and the right leg is going to do more work. Now, what does that mean over time? It means over time that if you are in a shopping mall, for example, and you have been out for a couple of hours, we're going to put on hold, let's just parking lot that whole idea of what you do with the bags. But let's just say you are free of all stuff and you are walking along and you've been out for a couple of hours and you have to take a flight of stairs and you're right-handed and sedentary. What's going to happen? Your right knee is probably going to scream at you as you're walking up a flight of stairs, or down a flight of stairs, maybe even worse. Right? The extension of the quadricep, pulling on the patella, pulling on the ligaments that surround the patella, right? You're going to feel that maybe. Your right butt cheek, underneath the butt, like those deep, not sciatica, but because the nerve is called the sciatic nerve, that area where that you've got probably inflammation from years of maybe standing still and resting your body weight on your right hip, because you're right-handed, and that's what right-handed people do. Your right ankle and right foot might give you a little bit of pain and suffering, and then your left hip through the left lower back might add a little element of complexity to the whole business. Now, why is that? As it turns out, there are a couple of parts of in a couple of places, there are some crisscrossing kinetic energy issues. And for sure, you've got, when you're right-legged, right dominant, your left lower back is susceptible to pain and suffering. And that has to do with the way that tissues crisscross the body and the way the energy force is moving throughout your body. So this is just the way it is. And when you're left-handed, there are lots of other issues. I'm left-handed. We're 10% of the population. And because we're taught a lot of things that right-handed people do, we tend to have a bunch of different variations on these issues. But since 90% of the population is right-handed, this tends to be the thing that we deal with. And if you are right-handed and you already know that this is something that you deal with, take stock in knowing that a lot of other people also deal with it. So the thing, going back to that the first part of the podcast, or the first part of the recommendations with respect to the warm-up before you head out, what it means is that at some point in your procession of stimulating exercises that you might want to do before you head out to experience Black Friday for 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever, is to exercise the legs independently of one another, which means things like lunges. It means maybe some forward kicks or some side kicks. If you are lying down on your side, exercises sort of like old style. You might think channel Jane Fonda, kind of like aerobics, or Olivia Newton-John in like the clamshell movements with your legs, where you lift up the leg and lower back down. I love those. I put a resistance band sometimes around my knee in order to have a little more resistance with those types of exercises. But those are the kinds of exercises that help stimulate the small tissues that reside in the left leg and just activate the left leg in general, and also helps stimulate the small muscles that will start to help out when your body starts to get tired over a longer period of time on your right leg. So it helps in both directions. But bottom line, when you are thinking about preparing for a long Black Friday shopping experience, don't forget that eventually during the day, the dominant leg is going to take over. It's going to help support the weaker leg. And to the extent that you can be prepared for that is going to be helpful for you. There was one last thing I was going to talk about. Oh, I know what it is. It's the shopping thing, the shopping bags, how you carry stuff. So I don't want to be a contrarian about the whole business, the excitement of being of shopping. I hate carrying things around, though I schlep a lot because I'm a New Yorker and I basically have to carry everything with my hands because I don't drive a car in New York, generally speaking. I wear a backpack. I try to put everything in the backpack and keep everything, centered on my body. Standing up really tall and thinking about your posture. I did talk about, as a function of these recommendations, one of the things is posture. When it comes down to your ability to carry bags, your ability to recruit your tummy muscles and keep your shoulders back, keep your tailbone tucked in, and therefore have a plumb line that's straight and healthy is really, really important. Obviously, there's the right hand versus the left hand carrying thing potentially in your future, or the right shoulder versus the left shoulder, or potentially, you're going to be carrying like a big thing maybe with two hands, and so you've got to deal with the pull on your back and or any other components of your anatomy that are going to be taxed. My recommendation in terms of all of that is to take at the top of each hour that you're out, maybe twice an hour, depending on what your goals are, what you're doing, to take 5 or 6 deep breaths and complete a little postural systems check wherever you are. Or you know what? I just came up with a new concept. Why don't we do it this way? Wherever you lay down your credit card. This is probably good for your mental state too. Whenever you lay down your credit card or cash for whatever you're purchasing, do a postural systems check. Take the time to think about your center of gravity. Remember, your ears and your shoulders should line up. Your shoulders should be back. That means that your head is not craning forward when you're staring at a screen or when you're driving a car. Typically what happens is that your head sort of wants to get closer to something. So it reaches forward. And when it does that, you're pulling on the back of the neck and thus your upper back muscles. You're collapsing the front around between the two sides of your clavicle and collapsing through your chest and thus restricting your breathing. So your center of gravity is off because your head weighs 11 pounds. So your center of gravity is being shifted, and thus it's harder for the mechanics of walking to even to produce the movement that you need, the ambulation that you need, without causing the pain and suffering that we're trying to avoid anyway. So you want to take short segments of time and complete a postural systems check. Pull in your belly button. Make sure that you're making contact with your feet properly. Don't use the right foot more than the left foot. Try to use keep your feet parallel to one another instead of turning your toes out, those kinds of things, and then take those deep breaths. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and wish you a happy Thanksgiving again. Remember those 3 components. You want to warm up before you head out. And again, if you need tips on warming up, there are dozens upon dozens of short workouts in the other channel, the muscle maintenance podcast channel, or get in touch with me via bodybyinshape.com. So that's the first thing. Warm up before you head out. The second thing is to think about the right leg versus the left leg and make sure that you are prepared for the dominant leg to have to support the weaker leg at some point when you are out, if you are out for a long period of time on Black Friday. And then the last thing is to make sure that your core, your posture, your stability is something that you check in with, especially in terms of carrying those any bags, anything that's heavy. You want to protect your back as much as you possibly can, and the way that you do that is by standing up really tall, making sure that you breathe deeply, completing those postural systems checks, which we now decided is best whenever you buy something. We should just take that through to beyond the holiday season. We're going to start doing that when throughout the rest of the year as well. I think that's a really great idea. Okay, so I'm going to say goodbye. Happy Thanksgiving. Let me know if you need anything at bodybyinshape.com, and I will see you again next week for another new episode.